everybody. This is Brittney and Byron, and you're listening to Dirty Laundry with B&B, a podcast about real, relatable relationships.
Transparency at its finest. We air it out and clear it up, offering couples and those seeking healthy relationships a safe, inclusive space to open the vents and find resolve. Hey, what's going on, Dirty Laundry listeners? We're back with another episode. I'm Byron.
And I am Brittney, and we are so excited to be back in the studio.
In a studio. It's a different one this time.
It's a different one. We're now in Tampa, Florida.
We are.
And man, it feels so good to be back.
Yeah, it does. It's been a long time, it seems. It's only been like, a month maybe since the last time we recorded. As some of you have listened to our last episode, we were in temporary living facilities, which is kind of like a hotel on an Air Force base. We were there because we're in the process of moving. As some of y'all have been following us for a while, we've been moving from Illinois down to Tampa, Florida, and we finally made it here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the listeners that have been patient with us. We just wanted to get settled in, get everything unpacked. We're still not even unpacked, y'all. Like, we are still hanging pictures, hanging blinds, curtains, the whole process. Byron's been working like it's his 9 to 5.
My goodness, because it is. Actually, it's like my 6 to 9, you know what I'm saying, before I get to bed.
True.
But yeah, it's been hectic. A lot of sweat, blood, tears have been shed already, but we're making it through. And, obviously with a lot of different moving pieces happening, a lot of stressors can come along. And so some of those behaviors that we had when we were children or adolescents kind of start to come to light, right? We're not taking our time to think about what we're about to say to our partner or to our children. So there are times where, some of the behaviors that you tried to unlearn before start resurfacing, and we're trying to get rid of those things. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, is unlearning some of those toxic behaviors.
Yeah. And anytime we're talking about unlearning, it's obviously something that we truly believed. It was kind of the way we were raised, or kind of how we thought things were supposed to be, whoever gave us that perception. And so now, as we're adults, we see behaviors in ourselves, or sometimes we don't, that we want to change and that we don't like. That's not presenting the authentic you that you want to be in your relationship, or in any relationship, not even just your marriage.
Yeah, it takes a lot of maturity to really, truly understand what types of behaviors you feel like you need to unlearn. Because we've talked about that before, the importance of reflection. In these times in our lives, we don't have the time or space to reflect on some of those behaviors. It's not until you call me out or I call you out on what those behaviors are that we finally understand, what needs to be changed. So it does take some pride to be stripped away from your typical day, and a little bit of opening your eyes and opening that aperture and allowing someone else, sometimes outside of you, to tell you that something needs to be changed.
Absolutely. And there has to be, when you are unlearning a behavior, there has to be something inside of you that wants to change that behavior. Mm-hmm. Whether that means you're not really sure why you believe this, and you're trying to kind of struggling, like, was it the way I was raised, or what made me believe that I had to believe this? And maybe it's a toxic behavior. Maybe it's just a behavior that you just don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And sometimes in our relationships, there are behaviors that we see come out that we don't want to display, and we have to figure out a way to eradicate those behaviors. And so now you've got to go down this path of like, okay, why am I like this? And how do I get to where I want to be?
Yeah. Well, how do you eradicate those behaviors? That's the hard part. So once you identify what those behaviors are, what is it that I need to do to change it? How do I unlearn those things?
Yes.
So we're going to try to share some of the things that we've learned through this process also.
And are still learning, by the way. There's still behaviors that I see in myself that I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that. And I would like to be the person I want to be, right? Like, we want to be that authentic self. And so, yes, agree.
Yeah. So what made you want to talk about this on today? Like, what sparked your interest on unlearning behaviors?
I don't know that there was anything that sparked my interest per se. I just know a lot of times we talk about reflection on ourselves and in a marriage. And, you can talk about things, or you can say like, oh, I really don't like when you do that. It's kind of irritating. But that doesn't mean that you're going to change it. It may not even be a behavior that you want to change. So then it made me start thinking about things that I do that I want to change, whether you have an issue with it or not.
Yeah.
And it made me start reflecting like, well, why am I like this? And why do I believe this? And one of the examples I used was that I don't find myself being very patient. And a lot of times I see myself even being controlling in those situations where I'm not being patient.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about, well, why do I do that? Why am I like so anxious? And when I think about it, I was raised by a strong woman, but I wasn't raised by someone that had maybe that calming demeanor. And that it was always like, we gotta go, we gotta rush. And I have to try to take a step back because you're very opposite of that. Like I'm like, we gotta go, we gotta move. And so that is something that I have to be strategic about. And when things are in the hustle and bustle, I forget that.
Can we stop there? Because I really want to make sure we kind of drive that part home with this. Sometimes we have behaviors that are learned based off our childhood and it's ingrained inside of us, right? And you've hit the nail on the head. Like that is one thing that you've always talked about that you would like to address is your rushingness. Not hasty, you're not hasty,
Sure.
but you're always above speed, right? You're always trying to get something done, right? There's never an opportunity to just relax and chill. That's what I like to do. And so whenever I address you or I say, hey, babe, slow down. Why are you speeding up? The first thing you do, what is the first action that you have?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Sometimes we get defensive. We get defensive because we feel like it's an attack on our character, but it's not. It's just that someone is trying to address a behavior, which is not you all the time, right? A behavior is not your personality. It's not. It's just something that you're doing because of the environment that you're in or the circumstance that you're trying to circumvent or trying to overcome. So sometimes when you're addressing me, I will get defensive, like you're trying to get at my character, but that's not the case. You're just trying to get at my behavior.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like
Sorry
that.
to interrupt
No, I like
you.
that. I like that. I think becoming defensive too is probably a mechanism that we all need to unlearn, right? Sometimes we look at things when people say something to us as a way that they're attacking us, but really they're just kind of self-checking us without saying it. We don't even realize it in the moment. Like it's like, hey, I don't like how you do that. But we don't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's a fair statement to make. I don't like how you do that. It's not, I don't like you. I just don't like what you're doing right now. And that's something that can be altered at any given moment. But again, stripping away the pride that's necessary to make that compromise or that collaboration that you're having with that person. And that can happen in the workspace and it can happen at home as well. So you had talked about how your behavior is patience. For me, it's another P word, perfection. I am a perfectionist. And I've been saying for a long time that I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Like I've had my coin revoked because
You had a relapse. Yeah.
For real. I am drunk on perfection, overdosed on it. And I don't know where it came from. I really need to think about that. But it is becoming a part of me that I just do not like. And I explain this to my child, my oldest, because he is much the same. He has to have things done methodically, and he's very meticulous, and things need to happen on a specific time. And if you tell him something, you better do it the way he said it. And I am just like that. And I tell him, son, sometimes you just got to let things go. Matter of fact, I just told him that today. Sometimes you just got to let things go. And when I'm speaking to him, I'm speaking to myself. And that is something that I need to really work on. And it's really resurfaced. And I use that word a lot here because it's very important that these things just bubble up whenever you're not thinking about it.
Right.
But as we've been moving into this house, we're having contractors come in to fix things for us, contractors coming in to build things for us. We're putting up pictures. We're creating shelves in our garage. We're trying to make space for things that we had and did not have. And so I'm like, have this vision in my mind on what things need to look like and when they need to be done. And I am just like going crazy trying to get this stuff done. And it is adding stress to my family too, because I am removing the space and opportunity that I have to spend with them because I am so trying to get these things accomplished, and it's so unfair. So I would really like to focus on perfection. Let me give you another story. So I just started my job on Monday. Today is Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So this past Monday, I started my job. Tomorrow will be my official second week. Well, at the job, they told me of a uniform or how they dress at the job the day before that Monday. So on Sunday afternoon, I learned what you're supposed to wear during the week. I had something else in mind. So that afternoon, matter of fact, that evening after dinner,
late.
we were running around town. We went to 4 different stores
y'all.
after 8:00 trying to find this apparel that I'm supposed to wear to school when I could have just wore what I had. And that's eventually what I did because none of the stores had what I needed. And it's all because of my perfection. Well, they told me I need to wear this, so I need to make sure I wear specifically this. Instead of just being, man, it's all good. I learned it late. They'll be all right. They'll understand that I didn't have what I needed to have.
So let me ask you this. So we talk about unlearning those behaviors. Where do you begin to unlearn that behavior?
Let me say this. So I did do some research.
Okay.
And there's this lady, her name is Sanja Stetzler. She's a certified professional coach and she's an expertise in leadership. And she says, unlearning a behavior is critically important in improving skills to take us to the next level. When we learn, we are adding to the knowledge we already possess. When we unlearn, it allows us to move outside of what we know into a new mental. I don't know what a new mental is.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn what that means. But I think it means that we're moving into a new chapter in our life that we have not yet experienced. And so if we're trying to unlearn a behavior, we've already hit the first step, is identifying that there's a behavior that you want to unlearn. And then number 2 is appreciating the fact that it's not you just forgetting that behavior or forgetting that part of you, because that part of you is a part of you for a reason. Sure. And sometimes when somebody's telling you that you're too much, what?
That's your superpower. You know my rule.
It's your superpower. So you got to be able to delineate, okay, is this my superpower or is this something I really want to let go of? And then thirdly, it's just practice.
It is. But you have to make sure too that you don't fall into that confirmation bias piece, because sometimes you can say things like, you know what, this is just the way I am. And then, you know, some people, Byron, you do a great job at always being spot on this. And then you're like, yeah, I'm not changing that. They've confirmed that. So when you say that she said she makes room for a new mental,
right?
In my interpretation of that, I think it just means you're making space for growth. Because if you can't unlearn something, you've boxed yourself in. You've boxed your mind in that this is the only way it can be. And if this is the only way it can be, this is the only perception that I can have, then how can I ever see someone else's way of doing things? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
I like that because it is important to truly understand who you are and appreciate who you are and value who you are. What we're talking about is, so obviously you don't want to forget those things, but what we're talking about is trying to make space for new things to come into your life and letting go of things that don't serve you or don't provide you a value or a purpose for things that are important to you and or important to your family. So if there is a behavior that you're saying that you might even appreciate, like I love the fact that I'm confident. This is an example. I'm not 100% confident, but say for instance that you just love the fact that you are extremely confident and you are bold and you are gregarious and you'll go out there and go get it. But then you learn that a risk that you have taken proved detrimental to your family. An investment that you made took money out of your children's college fund. Well, maybe that's a behavior that I need to dial back on as opposed to just keep on going full force on it.
I like that.
So it's not necessarily you just even getting rid of a behavior, but maybe tailoring it a little bit or redirecting that behavior a little bit to where it proves beneficial to your family as opposed to being detrimental to your family.
Right. And I think maybe like on a super basic level, if there's a behavior, let's say I want to go to bed early every night. I want to get to bed by 10 o'clock. Well, then my strategy may be that I set an alarm for 9:30 and I'm like, Byron, no kidding. We have to turn TVs off because I know I got to do my whole process, wash my face, brush my teeth, all that. So like 9:30, I no kidding him there. And that way I'm like moving forward and I'm trying to force myself. That's a very simple example of a behavior, but it's still a simple habit or example of you've got to set yourself and hold yourself accountable.
No, but you shouldn't add shade to the word simple, because that's how you're going to grow. Like people can't, I remember I was in officer training school and one of the military training instructors always said, you can't eat the elephant in one bite. And I'm like, that is the stupidest analogy. Like that is so dumb. But if you think about it, it makes sense, because what he's trying to say is just take baby steps.
We ain't eating elephants.
We ain't eating that. I like to go to Africa and go on a safari, but I'm gonna tell you, I ain't sparing down no elephant and eating that thing. But I will say that it made sense in the fact that, if you have a large task and believe you me, removing a behavior that you've been doing for 20 plus years is a huge task. You got to do the simple things first. So just take your time and practice on it. So if you are trying to work on patience, then maybe it does mean that, you want to take your time and slow down. So let me do this by, okay, at 9 o'clock, I'm going to start shutting things down. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
And I think just not making excuses. And honestly, I think children really hold us accountable on accident too, because if they don't like the way we do something, because I find my kids, if I'm like, let's go get your shoes on, they'll say to me, why are you rushing me? Although sometimes I feel like they need to be rushed. But there's things in those moments where I'm like, well, it's a Saturday. We don't need to rush. Yeah. And actually it just happened the other day. Yesterday, we were going to take our kids to the water park. We picked up one of Jonah's friends and we're going to take them all. And we're talking and I was like, B, where's your phone? And he said, oh, I left it at home. And I'm glad, oh my gosh, it has the tickets on it. And he's trying to get out the door because the park opens at 10. And I had to look at you and say, it's okay.
You did.
And I had to pull like a reverse psychology because it's usually the other way around.
Yeah, that's very true.
But in that moment, it was really easy for me to recognize it because I know that's what I do. I'm like, oh my gosh, now we're going to be late. Now we're not going to get a parking spot. We're not going to get, like, we had already reserved everything. Mm-hmm. The seats weren't going anywhere. The pool wasn't going anywhere, the water park. And in that moment, I had to just say, it's okay. Everybody's fine. Yeah. Everybody has snacks and drinks and just go grab the phone. We haven't even left the neighborhood yet. Yeah. It's okay.
And that felt so good. And I appreciated that you did that because, again, that was me trying to be perfect. We had talked about being there at 10 o'clock, right when it opened, making sure we got good, good seats. But as you stated, seats were already reserved. Everything was taken care of. And all of that was kind of locked in the safe in the back of my mind because, again, my plan was to be there at 10 o'clock, not thinking that it's okay.
It is.
When we get there, we get there.
Right.
And yeah, so you bringing that calm and demeanor to the, situation really made me think like, you know what, everything's good. The weather's nice. The kids are happy. They having a good time back there playing paper, rock, scissors or whatever it is they were doing in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And we gonna make it and everything's gonna be good.
Yeah. I just think sometimes reminding each other, and I don't know that you need to always stay in a relationship, what do you think I need to unchange, But if there's something that you recognize about yourself that you don't necessarily love and it's not who you want, it's not very becoming, it's not who you want to be, and it doesn't have that end state. This is sometimes what I tell myself. I'll say if I'm doing something that I don't really necessarily love, I'll think to myself, when my kids are adults, what will they say about this moment? Will they remember it? Will they say, oh my gosh, my mom was always running around? Like, I want their memories to be reflective of positive engagements and positive thoughts. And no one can be perfect, but I try to think of that when I'm rushing or when I'm in those moments that kind of, for me personally, that halts me because I'm like, I don't want them to feel like they aren't good enough. I don't want them to feel like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you didn't put that in the exact spot I asked you to put it in. Well, like they got it close enough because I don't want that to in turn into a behavior for them. Now I'm just, I'm not breaking the cycle of that toxic behavior that I don't even like in myself.
Right. Yeah.
Not toxic. Toxic might not be the word.
That's interesting. Because here's the thing too, there are people that are able to perfect the behavior that you don't want.
What do you mean?
So, say for instance, like we had talked about the confidence behavior that I necessarily can't control because I'm investing in the wrong investments and therefore affecting my kids' college fund. That example. Well, there's someone else that can utilize that confidence in a way that they're supposed to and then do the right investments, which actually improves their kids' college fund, right? So, with that, I think it's also important that our children appreciate or learn to value all different types of behaviors and understand that sometimes people aren't just perfect, like you stated.
No
People
one.
aren't, no one's perfect. So we're going to make mistakes. And I think about that only because as you're talking about our children having positive experiences and positive memories of their childhood, it made me think about like, as you're saying that, I'm thinking like my childhood and all these negative memories of it, right? But then also there are some positive memories too, right? The negative always outweighs the positive for some reason. I think that's just human.
Yes. Isn't that strange?
I think that's just human. So I think the most important thing we need to do in regards to that is make sure that our children understand that we're only human. We're not perfect. We're not superheroes.
We don't know
We
everything.
don't know everything. And sometimes we're going to lapse. But here's the deal. This is what I want to be. This is the type of father I want to be. This is the type of mother I want to be. And if I'm falling off, you help me with that.
I like that.
You help me with that. But understand I'm going to fail. And that's okay.
You're going to relapse?
I'm going to relapse, bro. Listen, I'm going to relapse. And I hope that you're there to forgive me, when I ask for forgiveness. And that's so weird, me saying that, because I'm not that type of dad. I wasn't growing up like that, but we're living in different times where
Yes.
our children have got to be able to use critical thinking. Them learning how to critically think is going to happen here at home, not at school.
That's right.
And if they learn it at school, it's way too late. Right? Because they're being influenced by somebody else doing something totally different that isn't necessarily in line with the things that we value.
And their emotional intelligence. They're learning at such a younger age than we learned it. We have 2 little boys who are very in tune with their emotions, way more than when we were growing up. Boys were just told not to cry or not to whine or not to do any of those things. So I think that they're already a step ahead of the game, really, compared to us. Not saying they're exempt from behaviors that they may exude later in life they don't like, but I do think they have a step up on us.
Yeah, being able to express your emotions, that wasn't a thing. No,
you didn't have to unlearn that. You needed to just learn that.
No, you just had to learn that. Like, whatever emotions you have, suppress that because I'm not hearing it. Like, that's the way we grew up. So it is hard and challenging for us to parent children who don't do that because we do encourage them to express how they feel about things. But at the same time, I'm like, still like, hey, because I said so. Like, that's just the behavior that I'm trying to unlearn. But I do want them to be strong and courageous and
speak their mind and ask questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In an appropriate way. But they're young, so they don't really know when to do that. You know what I'm saying? When to exercise that. But we're working with it.
And they watch us, right? They're always watching us. And so I only bring up children is because they tend to notice things that we don't notice. And when they say it, it kind of throws you for a loop because you think about it and they're not necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
You're just like, I just didn't know that you recognize that behavior or, that simple piece.
Yeah.
And so this can come from anyone, right? It can come from a friend. It can come from your spouse. It can come from a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
For sure.
That they may bring something up. And it's important to try to recognize that. And like Byron said, maybe not necessarily get rid of it. But if it is something that you're like trying not to be, it's worth becoming a better you and pushing forward to that piece.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about children. Let's talk about relationships, unlearning behaviors for relationships. What are some ways? Here, I'll give you 2 questions. You can answer whatever one, or you can answer both, and you can do them in whatever order you want because you get to do what you want because your name is Brittney and you get what you want. But all right, so the question is, what behaviors do you find in me that you would ask that I unlearn? Or 2, how do you approach your significant other, or how would you suggest you approach your significant other when there is a behavior that you feel like you would like them to unlearn?
I was going to say, I don't know that I would tell you to unlearn something, especially if it's something that you take pride in or it's something that's who you are.
Yeah.
But if there is a habit or a behavior that I would want you to unlearn, I'm trying to think of something I want you to just straight up unlearn right now is not coming to my mind, because even your perfectionist, even though you're saying that is something for you and you feel like it takes away, it's also a lot of the reason to your success. And so I don't know that I would say, Byron, you need to unlearn being a perfectionist, because it wouldn't have brought you where you are.
Yeah.
And so that's difficult. But I do think if there's something that
You think I'm perfect?
perfectly, imperfectly perfect. Yeah, perfectly imperfect. Thank you. I think it just depends on your relationship, one, but also just being maybe straightforward about maybe a behavior. And I think saying it in not a rude demeanor or a kind of at you demeanor or a passive aggressive. These are all the ways I wouldn't do it. But I'll use perfection as an example. I would maybe say like, I love that you're a perfectionist, but there are times that you have to be able to draw back on that. And I don't know how that looks for you, if that's something you're interested in, but there's got to be a time where, you don't. So there's got to be a way to say it to someone that says, I don't know if you want to change this, but this is something I recognize. Now, if it's affecting your relationship heavily, then you just need to be straightforward, in my opinion.
I do like how you said, I don't know how plan to address it. I don't think that you're removing yourself from the responsibility, but you're empowering your significant other by allowing them to be a part of the solution making process, as opposed to you telling them how they need to do it. So I like how you said that.
And it's dangerous to tell anybody how to do something and how to act and be, because we're not robots. I don't own you. You don't own me. And so I'm not going to tell somebody this is what you need to do. I've seen relationships like that, and it's really unfortunate and it's really controlling. And I've seen where people tell them their spouses they have to dress a certain way or act a certain way or talk a certain way. Now you've literally created a person that's just someone you created. It's not even them. They're not even authentic anymore. And I just don't like that. That's kind of ick.
Yeah. So I like it. I appreciate you sharing that. I think for me, when addressing your partner, allowing them to be a part of the solution making process, as stated, but then also not waiting until it becomes this overbearing thing for you.
Yeah.
To where you're starting to resent them or you're frustrated or you're pissed off. Like, you got to address it as soon as you feel it. If that makes sense. I think a lot of the times for me, I like to grin and bear it. And I do that with a lot of things in my life. I just hold on to it and like, it's not a big deal. Let them do that. Because I really afford people to be who they are. I love people for who they are. That's what makes the human race great, because there's so many diverse people, different perspectives. And I allow them to be who they are, even if I don't agree with them. Even if I wouldn't do that if I was in their shoes, I respect you for doing that or being you. That's right. But if it's someone who's in my life all the time, then you got something to lose.
Okay, but so I'm just waiting for you to drop the ball. What do you want me to change? Okay, what do you think?
That's
what I was waiting for you to say.
I'm answering the second question on how I would approach it. So
okay.
I would approach it. So this is how I would like to approach it, because I'm not saying that I do it, and I don't. I'm saying that I don't do it.
This is what your ideal state looks like.
Ideal state would be me approaching you as it occurred. The behavior I would like you to address would be your first reaction.
Please elaborate.
Brittney likes to show how she feels about things on her face and through her words as it happened. So sometimes you choose not. I don't say you choose not. I think that you're very confident, and I love that about you. You're very opinionated, and I love that about you. You're very strong, and I love that about you. I think that sometimes you can be overly, I'm trying to be super PC right now.
No, just say it how it is.
All right. So what it is this just your first reaction. It's not even nothing big. It's just that sometimes you express your opinion before you have all of the facts on some things, or not necessarily practicing discernment. So regardless of how someone else would feel about something, you just say how you feel about something without really minding how they're responsible. And that's not what I do. Which can be a problem sometimes, because then I think that does lead to passive aggressive behaviors you're talking about, right? I do think that becomes a problem.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Look, I'm trying not to have a reaction, y'all. So what I was thinking.
Go ahead, say what you gotta say. Oh God, that's hilarious. That is hilarious.
So no, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's great to know because it's something my face always says exactly what I'm thinking before anybody can finish saying. Not only that, I'm hella loyal, y'all. Like I'm so loyal. Like as soon as you telling me a story or something and
Lord.
I already feel that you was being done wrong, I'm like going in like off top. Like you already know. Like I'm like, wait, what? What happened? Oh no.
Yeah.
So I need to be careful. I do need to be better at that. Because I don't want it to come across as a judgmental thing either, you know, because I really don't feel like I'm a judgmental person. I really love people and I try to root for people.
For sure.
But sometimes making those expressions probably makes someone feel some type of way before they're even done with their story. Because I'm like, ooh, no. I don't know why I do it.
I like it.
But I'm going to work on it.
No, I like, right. I like it because it does address the situation straight up. Like I'd already just said, like you should address the situation. I think there's just a degree of which you do it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just not you. I'm just saying in general.
Sure. Well, you know what? We all have behaviors that we need to work on. No one is perfect. And this is a marathon, not a race of life. So we are evolving people. There are things you're going to need to do better. There are things that sometimes those behaviors need to come out, you know? And there's a reason they're there. But as long as we don't get tunnel visioned and feel that our way is the only way of life and no one else can do anything, we don't ever want to become those humans. So just make sure you have an open mind in your relationship and know that we all have behaviors. So before you point one finger at someone else, you got three pointing back at you.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe there's a behavior that I need to work on.
We all have blind spots, and you should have this entrusted circle that can provide you with information that you can accept. And that's okay. And you should be able to do that. We've used the word authentic over and over and over again tonight. And I think it's important to also understand that the authentic you changes without you even realizing it. I guarantee if we had a past to be able to go back in time and look at it and just watch ourselves when, 15 years ago, you'd be like, who is that person?
So true.
You would have no idea. So I don't want anyone to think that this episode was based on you changing you. Understand that yourself is changing all the time anyway. What we're talking about are the behaviors that are not suiting you, the behaviors that are not suiting the people that you love, that are around you, that people that are counting on you. There are behaviors that sometimes you have that aren't beneficial to yourself or any of them.
I agree. And also just remember that the energy you put out into the world it's a lot. We go to our jobs. We have people that we pour into constantly. Don't forget the most important person is, yourself and taking care of yourself. And I won't say the most important person, but taking care of yourself is important. You put a lot of energy into other things in the world. Make sure you put some energy into yourself.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks, babe. And I hope that you don't take so time a lot. This is my call for help because I'm going to hear it after the episode.
Get out of here.
Nah, but we appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all. We do.
Yes, this has been good, and we're so excited just to be back in the studio. We have more episodes coming your way. We got some good topics coming too, so stay tuned. Please continue to shoot us those questions. We're still going to answer them on episode 20. Super excited about it.
All right. Hey, y'all know what it is. Be blessed, be you, and just be. We out.
I'm blessed to be